Hello and welcome to Corner Comics, your mostly weekly comic book reading club. We were gone last week, but we're back this week. My friends and I pick a few issues, and then we share those issues with each other, and then we get together and talk about those issues. I'm joined by my friends Russ and Emmanuel. Gentlemen, how are you doing, and where can people find you?
Well, I just had my COVID test, so I won't know until my results come back. However, you can find me online because that is social distancing. You can find me online at blacksuperherofan.com and comiccreatorsofcolor.com. Also on Twitter at Walrus, that's at WALLRUSS. And you can also find my most recently published article on cornercomics.net.
Nice. I am doing astronomically well, and you can find me on the gram at EM_MAN_YOU_EL. After you're done writing all that and searching me on the gram, you can also find me at EmmanuelTheStory.com. See you there.
Nice. All right. Well, like always, we have 6 issues. Last week, when Emmanuel told us that he wasn't going to be able to make it, I said, fuck it, we're not doing the show because we have too many good books this week. So we're pushing it to next week when everybody feels better and we can actually do this. So we'll start. We'll go down the list of issues that we're going to talk about. I'm bringing 2. I've got Superman, the Man of Tomorrow, number 14. This is a current run, and this is part of DC's Digital First line of comics. And my second book of the week is Guardians of the Galaxy number 1. This is the 2020 run. I've been following this run, but I started with issue 1 because I thought it was a good place to jump on. Even though they're still doing the legacy numbering, and it does follow the story that just got wrapped up. This is a book that's being done by Al Ewing, who's the guy that's writing the current Empire story arc. So there's that. Russ, your 2 issues.
Well, the first book I brought is Green Hornet, number 1 by Dynamite. And I brought it because Matt brought the, what did you bring? The purple?
The Phantom.
The Phantom. And, you know, how, and so I figured I'd bring a book of that style, something I thought was done a little better. And, of course, you guys will be the judge. I also brought Bedlam from Image Comics because I'm tired of these people making me read long books, so I figured it's my turn. And there will be others since no one seems to care. This is a take on the Joker in a way, but it's an entirely original book. Emmanuel?
All right. So I have brought 2 dark books. Theme dark, not necessarily the art. The first one is by Image. It is The Ice Cream Man. This is, we'll get into the story itself, but yeah, it's a wild ride. The Ice Cream Man by Image Comics. And then the second one is Dark Knights, Death Metal Legends of the Dark Knights, issue number 1, the current 2020 run.
All right. I think it's a good selection of books. 2 of them are exceedingly long, so that's part of the reason I picked my 2. Nice, short, easy to digest books. So we'll go ahead and get into it. I'm going to start with my first issue. Superman, the Man of Tomorrow, number 14. This is a DC Digital First. I don't know if they're going to reprint these, but this sort of goes along with, I guess, DC's new strategy. At the tail end of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about how Diamond is no longer the only game in town, and if you want your DC books and you're a store owner, you have to go through this new distribution company. So I think DC is sort of diversifying their business model a little bit, and this is one that I found, and I thought it was actually a pretty good book. It's sort of Superman Saturday morning cartoon, if you will, and I thought it was just a really cool issue with Metallo, or Metallo, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, the villain with a heart of kryptonite and a cybernetic face. Sort of looks like an old school '90s cyborg, and it just sort of, I don't know, it touched me in the child, and I thought that I would bring this issue. So, guys, what do you think?
I'll go. All right. So this was fun. I never really think of it as high stakes for Superman when he battles Metallo. It's just he's gonna knock him dead. He's gonna beat him, and it'll be just the story of the week, the monster of the day. He'll move on with his life. This kind of tried to make you have more high stakes. It tries to give you the feels. I appreciate it for what it is. I wasn't necessarily pulled at the heartstrings by this because you know that it's Metallo. You know that it's a defeatable foe. Superman could legit just fly up in the air, laser, like eye laser him, and it's fine. I mean, his legs are made out of metal, so he
But
can.
that would be murder.
No, he could just do it as he can just maim him, take out his legs and arms because they're not like actual limbs; they're all metal. So you can ground him, and then have somebody else dispose of the body, or not dispose of the body, but put the body in a cell after he's immobilized. I'm just that it could be point blank period over with. But they try to make it emotional. They try to appeal to your higher self in regards to Superman might be dead. In his former battle, Metallo nearly killed Superman, which I have a hard time believing. It's it's interesting. I really didn't expect the ending, how Superman would team up with another foe of his in order to fight this one. So that one caught me by surprise. I appreciate it. It was very low stakes, but it was entertaining. The art itself was very comic booky. I appreciate it. It's very much what you would expect from a Saturday morning cartoon slash comic book. So I liked it.
Okay, this is a generic book. It's a generic story. There's nothing really special here. The art is okay. It's not great. It's just, it's there. It's easy to see and understand. But the low stakes of it, the genericness of it, makes me go, eh. I will say, I mean, I couldn't recommend anyone to pick this up because there's really not a lot of meat and potatoes here. Um, but I will say that I was surprised by the last panel. I did not see that coming. But I didn't buy the book. You don't buy the book for the last panel. You buy the book for everything up to and including that. And I feel like the quote Saturday morning cartoon, you know, when you watch a Saturday morning cartoon of Superman, it's sort of a one and done kind of thing. There's no real part two. If you just like Superman and you're a Superman fan, there is more of it, right? And so if it's sort of a kid Superman comic in a way. You don't have to be smart. You don't really have to understand this. Everything is explained to you. Everything is spoon fed. You don't see any actual bullets come from the gun. It's very safe. You didn't have to hire your best artist. Everything is there for more of a younger viewer's Superman. A YA Superman.
Yeah.
So I will say, in all honesty, you could pass on this book. Is it terrible? No. Do I recommend you buy it? Hell no. Do I recommend you read it? There's not enough story there for me to do that. So
Okay.
I would say, in my opinion, for that reason, but if somebody just hands you a Superman book, hey, okay, I'll read that. But more than that, I couldn't say. Those are my thoughts.
All right, manual read bypass.
All right. So from this, I never really have high expectations for a Superman book. So I would say it's a read just because it's a Superman book and it didn't exceed nor let me down. It's right in his wheelhouse. It's a read.
Okay. Alrighty then. If there are no final thoughts, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. Guardians of the Galaxy #1 or Legacy number 163, I believe. The image is a little tiny on my screen. Um, So this is the first issue in a new story arc. It introduces a brand new character to the Guardians of the Galaxy in the Marvel Universe. Has a very cliche name, but some interesting powers. This also brings back the other pantheon of gods that Marvel has dabbled in the past. So, for those not familiar, Thor was probably the most successful of all of the sort of god books that Marvel put out, but they also did Hercules, and they've done other from the different pantheons. So this brings back Zeus and Hercules and Poseidon and all of the Greek gods. What are your guys' thoughts, and especially on Marvel Boy? I'm curious about the Millennial Guardian.
Just because I want Russ to go last, I'll go now. All right. So I liked the fact that they're all, it sets the scene where they're all just chilling, grilling burgers, vacation. That's something you really don't see from the Guardians of the Galaxy. They're always guarding the galaxy, always putting themselves out on the limb for the sake of the world, for the sake of the universe, for the sake of the galaxy. Marvel Boy, I have a question about his saliva. It's psychedelic. How? Like, I need a backstory about the psychedelic saliva. Did he kiss someone and they tripped out? Did he accidentally drool on something? Somebody bit it and they tripped out? I need to know. There are so many questions about your psychedelic saliva. Exploding fingernails. That's just weird writing. Um, I'm given MacGyver vibes when it comes to his fingernails. Like, I don't understand in what instance would that be useful. You just like shoot your fingernails out as a gun. I don't understand Marvel Boy at all. Uh, but that being said, I have plenty of questions that leads me to want to read about him further. So mission accomplished. Probably not in the way that they wanted it, because I'm curious, but with a hint of disgust. But I want to know if my disgust is warranted or if it's just me being old. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I like the fact that they're going on a caper and Rocket and both Star Lord. They have the fight in them. They just can't give it up. I like that kind of pull. They finally have the life in which they fight for. That's serene. Everything is fine. We just got off a big battle with the religion, and now we're grilling burgers. Life is good, but then duty calls. So
Duty.
they're fighting against their nature. They're fighting against their nature, and they go out to fight another battle. So that's my take. I enjoyed it, and I have plenty of questions about Marvel Boy, and I will read more. So this is it's a read. It is a read because of Marvel Boy.
Okay.
Okay, so just so you know, Marvel Boy was genetically created with cockroach DNA. That where you want to take it. Marvel Boy did have his own book for a while. I think it was a miniseries. So if you're looking to go back and find out about this particular incarnation of Marvel Boy, there are comics out there for you. I like the art of this comic. It was enjoyable, clear, easy to get, and just sort of fun to just sort of look at. Some art you just bypass because of the story. This art sort of gives, you want to look, especially the sort of character drawings. So I enjoyed the art of this book. I like the fact that all of the Guardians were, in this series starts, basically retired. And then some of them can't retire, which lets you know that most heroes have to die because they can't stop, right? They can't stop, right? They're going to come out of retirement, and sooner or later, some young buck, Marvel Boy, is going to come and kill him. So I get that. Like, you don't know who you are if you're not. It's like a retired cop. You don't know what to do anymore. So you're going to go police your neighborhood because you can't got nothing else to do, right? So that makes sense. That seems like a logical conversation. There's also an explanation for the change in Rocket's behavior. He appears to be a kinder and gentler, bespoke-suited raccoon. and you know that's very strange, but they address it, they talk about it, so nothing is really out of sorts. And it was interesting to see this particular pantheon of gods because we tend to think they are earth-based,
Yeah.
right? And it, that's interesting to say that what if gods are not about Earth? Is Thor Earth-based? Is he Thor to the planet? Bootleg somewhere else? Is he Thor to that planet? Is he gods to all people? Is he God to the Kree? Is he God to the Skrulls? It just calls that attention and that into attention. So I like that it made me think about that, right? Whether that was intended to be there or not.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say it. I don't care if it's a revelation. I like Hercules better than Thor because Hercules don't need no stinking hammer. Right? Hercules doesn't. He's still just as arrogant, right? He's still all this other stuff, right? But unlike Thor, who's long-lived, Hercules is actually immortal, right? Thor will die. Odin will die.
Right.
Over time. They may live a millennium, but they're going to get old and die. Hercules is going to be young forever, right? That's more. So my thinking is, if you're going to die, can you be a god? Right?
Yeah.
Hercules, immortal. So Zeus, immortal. So anyway, give me my Hercules back and just stop doing Thor books and let's just do Hercules. Hercules is always the best swashbuckling god there is. And we need to bring him in the MCU and show Thor how it's done. And then I feel like Hercules is a little smarter. But then maybe not.
Oh.
There's conversations either way. But give me back my Hercules. And they did that. So if you have any like for Guardians of the Galaxy and you want a new place to start, I say this is a buy.
Yeah.
If you don't, if you're not really that much a fan, I think it's still a read. It looks good and it makes some interesting points that are worthy of conversation outside of the book. So I think there's something here that that grants it readability, or that everyone should take time to read it. Those are my thoughts.
I have a question about Groot's speech. Why is he coherent now?
So
You're going to have to read the books. He was broken. Some god of plants, the gardener, the cosmic gardener, or somebody fixed him. There you go.
Oh, awesome.
There's all these cosmic beings. There's a cosmic being of gambling. There's the game master. All these others. But one of them is the gardener, and he is about plants, and he fixes them.
yeah, and I want to say that happened 2 runs ago. So maybe a couple, 3 years
You're
ago.
way behind, man. You're like 50 issues behind. Get to work.
I am, because I'm just used to I am Groot.
So I was down on the Marvel Boy character until and spoiler alert if you haven't read this, I want to say it's Hermes. When he blows Hermes' head off, straight up just manifests a blaster weapon and just blows his head off. I was like, oh my god, I like this character now.
He's a dick. I'm not going to buy books where, dick characters, right? I just, don't get me wrong. It's millennial and he's a dick. He's got interesting powers. I'm not going to buy a Marvel Boy book, but I am willing to buy a book where he's a member of the team.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how his character fits.
But he does have a book, and he's a dick in that book. So I'm going to say go back and find that Marvel Boy book. It's probably in the bargain bin right now.
Probably. Yeah.
It's short-lived and it's a canceled run. I'm on it. I'll fall in love with it immediately.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly how that was made. He was made for you.
All right. Any final thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Russ, your first issue.
My first issue is Green Hornet. I want to say this is a black and white book, but it's more like a black, white, and green book.
Yeah.
And this is, we talk about, I've talked about, can pulp heroes survive in modern times? Right? When you think about, bringing back, if you try to bring back the Phantom, you have to do something to update him because that shit won't fly right? In our normal world that we know. So this is sort of straddling that line, and that it has the original Green Hornet with similar sensibilities to the pulp of the past. And yet there's still something, they're trying to make an effort, though not a full effort, to sort of modernize it. But I think that the story is done in a noir way, or maybe not quite noir because it's not that dark, uh, uh, but in an interesting way. It is comic booky also in a way, right? This is sort of how comic books were done. Like if this book was done 30 years ago, you wouldn't have to change anything, right? There's
Right.
not a lot new here, right? This is exactly how it could work 30 years ago. The art, everything. So I'm interested to see you guys take on something that could have been written 30 years ago and be exactly the same. I mean, there may be some little things in how we do lettering and stuff that may be a little different, but everything else is there. This is very much an animated series looking book, I think. Uh, that being said, what do you guys think?
Manuel, want to go first?
Sure. Okay.
You always
So
go first.
I like it. Um, the book itself, I appreciated it. It really reminds me of the movie, and that was my real first introduction. I knew of the Green Hornet, but the movie with Seth Rogen and Jay Chow, I think, like that was my first real introduction to the Green Hornets. I liked it. It fell in line with the action of the movie. And I really hate to compare it to, but that's the only other reference I have to go on. I knew that it was one of those old school heroes, those old school caper and villain type stories. It's nice. I like the twist on he is working at a news facility, but he is the proprietor of it. He's the owner of it. And he's in charge of the story of the Green Hornet. So he can tell the story about the Green Hornets, this dastardly villain, and he's the one, he's his own PR person. And he's purposefully making himself out to be like this anti hero in order to get in line with the villains and then usurp them, or not necessarily usurp them, but foil their plans. I like that. It's an interesting take on, you see Clark Kent as a news reporter, you see Peter Parker as a photographer at a newsstand. So this person actually owning the news facility and spinning that story that way, I appreciated that twist. The era it's in, it has a very old school style look, but it also has like form now planes, like modern day planes, and
Yeah.
technology seems to kind of be off a bit with the art of the time. So that is interesting to me. I like that juxtaposition between the two. It's kind of like one of those Batman movies where they have cell phones but old school cars. I like the Michael Keaton and yeah. But overall, I would say this is a read. Simply because I'm not too in love with the Green Hornet. I like the aspect of him. It may grow on me if I read more, but as of right now, this is just a solid read.
Yeah, I think my thoughts are similar to Manuel's. I the artist here is definitely a fan of Bruce Timm because this looks like Batman the animated series.
Yeah.
Um, and so when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have appreciated that. Like, why do they got to make the comic book look like a cartoon? But as I get older, I do appreciate this style and what it takes to get sort of the finesse of like the way the characters' faces look and things. And I think stylistically, it really pays off. The monochrome green um, does kind of work, but I think partially because I like black and white books. So if you don't like black and white books, I don't know that that would be appealing to you. But yeah, it's weird. This book's sort of set in the 1950s, but it's not the 1950s. It's modern day. Um, I like that about it. Like the jet and stuff looks retro future or retro futuristic. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, we've got a couple of different storylines going on here because it starts off where he's fighting the army, and then it sort of goes into a whole nother story that's going on, and where those two diverge, I don't know. So you almost have to get the next issue if you have liked this issue. Um, but overall, I think it's a solid read. Um, I would consider putting this in the buy pile if maybe it was an off week for you and there was, you needed something to fill your pull list. It's a number one issue. Like, why not buy it and put it in your collection? Um, but yeah, if you're coming back to it, solid read for sure. It was enjoyable. I liked it.
So I have to ask, you guys remember the old Kapow Batman, right?
Yeah,
Do you remember the 2 episodes where the Green Hornet was on there and they fought?
actually don't remember
You
that.
remember Kato was actually played by Bruce Lee. So
Okay.
there are episodes of Batman out there where Batman is getting ready, like putting his fist up to fight Green Hornet, and Robin is going to have to fight Kato. And right, just seeing that, right? So you have to go back and find that. I'm sure it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Say Batman versus Green Hornet. See them fighting, right? And so that sort of that was my first visual TV screen introduction to Green Hornet. Now I'm going to say this: I since have gone back because what it is Batman had his live action Kapow series. I say Kapow, so
Yeah.
but Green Hornet also had his own series,
Yeah.
right? It's still there for you to watch. I actually found a channel on my Roku that is just about those Green Hornet episodes. So you can pop it into your Roku, watch all the Green Hornet episodes with Bruce Lee and Kato in all his glorious black and whiteness. I highly recommend if you're looking for something from the past to sort of get into that you can go out and watch legally free. Definitely watch it when you see Kato squaring off against Robin is something everyone needs to see in their life. Right? Burt Ward versus versus Bruce Lee. Who wins that fight? Right?
Yeah.
You definitely need to see that. And then if you have further interest, definitely go back and watch those old episodes. He didn't have the Batmobile; he had the Black Beauty, right? But it was basically written in that similar style as that Batman series, which is why they were able, because it's the same actors were in the Batman when they were fighting in that. So that series was possibly happening at the same time. So it's in that same vein. So if you're looking for a reason to love it or to care about it, there's some free stuff out there for you to take a look at. I hope you enjoy. I would say if you are a fan, you might consider buying it, but I would also say that it's at least a read.
Yeah. It was pretty solid. It's interesting that he controls the newspaper. That's
Mhm.
how where his wealth comes from.
Side note, the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, controlled a media empire back in the day. So he
Okay.
was bigger than one newspaper. So this is not a new thing.
Right.
So if you're interested in that old school Green Lantern, Alan Scott, is a similar conversation here.
Nice.
Anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
I will say that I think Green Hornet probably holds up better than Phantom in terms of those pulp heroes.
Yeah.
Even though I was feeling nostalgia for the Phantom a couple weeks ago. Yeah. All right. Moving on then.
Okay. This is a book I found by mistake. It is an Image book. It is called Bedlam. I just thought I'd give it a read. And it's kind of black. It's like the Green Hornet is black, white, and green. This is sort of black, white, gray, and red for a lot of blood, right? This is a Joker-ish story. It's not the Joker, not at all. It's hard to say there are not similarities, though. And this is not the same thing at all. I feel like it's more Joker cross / Deadpool in its own way,
Okay.
in some way in the jokiness and all of that, but it's its own thing. So I don't want to make it less than what it is on its own. It's called Bedlam. It's on Image, and it's writ for a few. I think there's a few graphic novels out about it. That being said, what did you guys think?
I'll let
Do you wanna
Emmanuel
go?
go first again.
All right. So, V for Vendetta. This is
Okay.
immediately what it reminds me of. If you have a character, and like modern day Anonymous, if you have a character that is bent on the world being wrong and wanting to show everyone, like, look, the world is wrong. The powers that be that are controlling the world are treating us as puppets or treating the population as puppets. We can rise up. We can do better. We can do more. We're not puppets. We're not to abide by this law, this standard. Whether it's right or wrong, you're puppets. Wake up, people. Wake up, sheeple.
Wake
So it's
up.
so this is what I get from this villain. He's not a villain or murder for murder's sake. He is doing it for a point, and it's not just for him. It's for the populace. It's for everyone. He wants this mass awakening. He even begged to be killed so that others can live, which was really weird, psychotic, and twisted. And the government didn't want to do it. It's an interesting story. I haven't seen anything like this other than what I mentioned about V for Vendetta, about this figure just really being outspoken about the world being broken and this is how you remedy it. So that
Murder.
being said, yes, murder, a very Russ-like comic. So you definitely stayed on brand with this comic. I liked it. I would consider this a buy simply because of its philosophy. Whether I agree with it or not, I think it's interesting. His worldview, his philosophy, and his desire to have the populace see things the way he sees them. Uh, yeah, it was interesting. I consider it a buy. The art itself is visually interesting. I wouldn't necessarily go as far as to say stunning, but it is visually interesting how it's kind of pastel, but it also is it's interesting. White, black, gray, and red. It has my option for opinion for.
All right. Yeah, this is a buy for me. Um, I do have a question for both of you because I don't know if you guys feel the same way or think the same as I did. But the black, white, and red stuff are you of the opinion that that's all happening in real time and actually happening in the world?
Uh, well, I mean, there are times where time is moved, like this happened and then this happened. But I feel like it's all happening in real time.
Because
You don't actually see in the beginning the grisly murders. You really only see after he's finished, right?
well, yeah, except for the little girl.
hmm
Um,
So, and then here's the next question: is there more than one of them?
well, so the impression that I got was that the main character that we're introduced to in his apartment, when you have normal color,
hmm
that's reality. Everything that's black, white, and gray and red is in his mind. It's not actually happening.
What if I say that? Okay, so we get to a point later in the book where he's talking to the doctors or whatever.
Right.
Where he, and what are they? What is your take on what they're doing to him when he's tied down and the doctor is messing with his brain? What is he doing to him? What's your take on that?
I think that he's in a mental institution.
But it doesn't it look like the doctor is doing something to him that sort of reinforces or is recreating him?
I'm scrolling through right now to see if I can find that
hmm
panel.
Because the doctor looks like the Joker.
Yeah, a little
If you
bit.
look, right? Uh, but and he looks like he has an agenda,
Okay. All right.
right? So who's to say and then he says you're already dead?
Yeah.
Who say that the original him didn't already die? What if this doctor is hypnotizing or implanting into different people so that this evil murderer continues.
Interesting.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that
'Cause
is.
all when you look at it there, there's a big panel. He says, "Well, he says, would you like to hear my initial diagnosis? You're already dead."
Yeah.
But I feel alive. No, no, it's true. Here, let me show you. Right? So, right? So there is something here, and then look at the nurse in that next panel. So, no, I think that this is my view, right? Not reading any other issues, just this
Right.
one. I think that he's being recreated or reimplanted into other people, and maybe it doesn't take for everybody. And maybe that character that's not in the black and white and red universe is one of those people.
Okay. All right. That could work as well.
But it could be time travel, so I don't, it could be all in his head. I guess you'll have to read further to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're talking about it like this elevates it for me. But it's still your turn. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. The fact that you can look at it from a couple different angles, I do appreciate that. I'm pretty big on the artwork too. I think the art was actually really well done. It has a sketchy quality to it, but it's more controlled than some of the other books that we've read and looked at that have sort of that sketchy element to it. So for that, I really appreciate the artwork too. I I don't want to say that it's Deadpool. I do kind of get V vibes, but thinking for another V word. But I this is like V if he were legitimately insane, right? Not on the
Right.
border. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, this is a solid buy for me for sure.
All right. I brought one from the past and made it a buy of the future.
Yeah, this came out in what year, Russ?
I want to say 92,
2012.
guess. 2012? Yeah, 2012. You're right. 2012.
Yeah, this is one that I'm gonna look
But
for in the back issue.
yeah, this
bin.
is actually, there are already 2 trade paperbacks that already exist.
Okay.
So the first trade paperback carries issues 1 through 12, 1 through, maybe only 1 through 6, I don't know. But they're already through 2. You may be able to find it on, since it's an image book, you may be able to find it on where you get your digital books from.
Comixology.
Yeah, you may be able to find it. I mean, with the image book, wouldn't it? You would think it would just be there.
Yeah. Hopefully.
But I like it because it's not your standard fare. It made me think,
Yeah.
and it took me somewhere that an average DC book and Marvel book doesn't take me.
The other
Right.
the other thing that's
Get
interesting.
Similar vibes. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
The other thing that's interesting too is the superhero figure is
Mhm.
very much just in the periphery.
Yes, 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 yes. Basically, an iron Batman is just another Batman in his own way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But do we even know his name? I don't know if they even
I
say
don't
his
think
name.
they
I think they
ever
refer to him
address.
as the first.
The first. Interesting.
I think
Hmm.
that's who they're referring to. It's when the mayor or the woman was up on the podium, and
Okay.
then
Okay.
she kind of stepped down, and the guy started talking about his view on public and the murderers and all those. He referred to this figure as the first.
So I'm going to also say this is a longer book, the longest book this week, as far as page-wise.
Yeah.
I'm the one who broke the cardinal rule this time, but it's only just beginning. Since you guys don't care, I'm going to keep doing it. But if you count the value for your money for one issue, you get a lot here. You get
Yeah.
a lot of story, a lot to read. It's very much a filling cup, a filling helping, if you were, for the money you pay for this book, which you may even be able to find in the bargain bin.
Yeah.
Agree.
All right. Moving on then, Emmanuel, your first issue of the week.
All right. My first issue is Ice Cream Man. No D, just Ice Cream Man. It is an Image comic. It is issue number 20. current run of the 2020 Ice Cream Man saga. What did you guys think about this dark tale?
I want to
You want me to
know.
go ahead?
I want to know how the hell you even found this book. Number one. Number two.
Well, this series has actually gotten critical acclaim.
Okay.
Actually, talked about a lot in a lot of circles. I'm going to go ahead and go first since I started. You can, correct me in a few minutes here.
No worries.
So we all play video games, the three of us, right? Though not always together. But I don't hear that we play a lot of scary games. There's one thing, a problem with if you make a really good scary game, it's too scary for people to play. So they can't enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like if you make the best scary game, it's unplayable because you can't finish it.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a scary book. It's a horror book, and it's fucking very well done. Right? The art is there. It is on point. It is clear and crisp. Right? And they talk about there's apparently no fucking taboo at all. They may say whatever. We taking the Comics Authority shit out of here.
Yeah.
You say whatever the fuck you want, right? They turn what is it? They do different takes on different types of fairy tales.
Children's
one
books.
book,
Yeah.
like 3 stories or so, children's books, right? And one of them is a Dr. Seuss book. Instead of green eggs and ham, it's what? Wheat laced with Coke.
Yeah.
Right? And he goes through the whole 9, right? And I mean, it's not like it's a short version. There's literally the whole green eggs and ham, but wheat laced with Coke is there in the whole thing, right?
Yes.
And then you look at it like, and if you read enough of it, you realize, well, green eggs and ham might be the same fucking thing, right? So I'm gonna say this: I really fucking enjoyed this book, and I will probably never read another. I don't like feeling like this.
That's fair.
Paying for it,
I get that.
right? Because it's deep. Like you get the 3 stories. It's like a I don't know, Tales from the Dark Side, all these other, where not only do you have the 3 stories, but they exist in a world that is also a horror story. The story
Yes.
of these kids that are listening to it are also the 4th ongoing horror story. And then his face at the end,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so all these books are like that. This is a fucking very, very well written book. I highly recommend you read Run and get the fuck out of it. Right? It is not. And don't let your kids anywhere near it. I say buy it digitally so you control that shit. Because if your kids read this, they will be fucking warped. It is not for them.
Yeah.
It's for you because you read a Dr. Seuss book when you were a kid. And you read these children's books when you were a kid. New kids don't read that shit anyway, really, right? I'm surprised. And this is one issue,
Yeah.
right? This is a whole series of these shits. Nope. I enjoyed it. It is a buy, but then you got to take it back because you can't leave it laying around. So it looks good. It's well told. It keeps you involved. You don't get bored, right?
Yeah.
And then they just find a way to do extra creepy. They didn't have to put blood on the donuts. There was no reason. You didn't need to have the blood on it, but they have it there, right? Because they don't never let you get through 2 panels without creepiness. There's got to be some creepy in every panel, and it is popping. It is happening. There is fear. All of that shit is there. It's fucking very nicely done. Read it and run. There you go. I'm done.
Nice.
You said it much more eloquently than I could. This is seriously the most fucked up book I've ever read. It's
But you were entertained.
well, yeah. I mean, you keep reading because you're like, this can't get. Where does it get better? Where do we come out of this nightmare? You just never leave. You're just always in the nightmare. Yeah. Good night, girl who's eating a spoon. I guess I'll have my weed laced with Coke. Like, what the fuck? This is it's so bizarre and so absurd. I'm not surprised that it's critically acclaimed. This is one that totally eluded me, but the way that you described it, Russ, about like horror wrapped in horror, that is pretty masterfully done, and it's really intriguing. It's something that I acknowledged but didn't think about until you had just mentioned that. So um, that now that I can identify with that, I'm going to elevate the book a little higher than the way that I've originally thought about it. But yeah, the fact that this is a whole Dr. Seuss book done in the same style as a Dr. Seuss book, but just totally warped. That alone, I think, is a reason to
And
own
it's not
this.
just Dr. Seuss book. Dr. Seuss is one of the stories, but there's also two other stories that are in the vein of the other children's books.
True.
But the Dr. Seuss book took me over the edge. Like I was with it, and I see what you're trying to do, right? I see
Yeah.
you. And then he went Dr. Seuss and went full on. I was like, oh shit, Dr. Seuss did make me smoke weed laced with coke the whole time. That guy was a drug dealer. Right? That shit is on Netflix. You want green eggs and ham, motherfucker? You know you want that shit. Will you have it over here? Will you have it over there? Because I bring that shit to you anywhere. Right? This is that whole thing. You know, it made me relook at Dr. Seuss. And you think, you know, when you look at Dr. Seuss, all these crazy words and all that, was he trying to fuck with my brain? Was he trying to infiltrate my child consciousness, my paradigm, and throw some mess up in there? Because now I can't think of green eggs and ham the same way anymore. He broke it.
You're
Right.
welcome.
Broke my childhood with this book, and I'm not reading another book because you ain't breaking nothing else in my childhood. Fuck you, whoever wrote it.
Yeah. It's a buy for me. For
There you
sure.
go. But don't let the kids see it.
No, yeah, they will. Well, I think if you're young enough, you won't even.
Weed laced with coke. When your 3-year-old, 6-year-old comes at you and say, "Mom, what's weed laced with coke?" You gonna break that down for them?
I would just tell them that I'll tell them
A
about it.
soda?
I'll tell them about
Oh,
it.
well,
when
can I
they're-
make
when
some?
they're
I
older.
see you smoking weed sometimes, Daddy. Can we make some? Because I can see kids asking for green eggs and ham, right? Some people have found a way to prepare green eggs and ham, right?
Yes.
So now you're gonna prepare some weed laced with coke? You left this around for your kids? We already have some coke, Daddy, and I know you smoke weed. Let's make some.
That's messed up.
See? That's why you can't have it in your collection. You gotta have a vault for that shit. Right?
All right. Any final thoughts?
Nice.
No, I said all mine. I said it all right there.
Okay.
Read it and run.
Last book of the
I
week.
am happy you guys have read it.
Yeah. Last book of the week, Emmanuel.
All right. Dark Knights Death Metal Legends of the Dark Knights, issue number 1. This is a story about the Batman Who Laughs infecting arguably the most powerful DC figure, or one of the most powerful DC figures, Dr. Manhattan. But in this incarnation, Dr. Manhattan is not John, I forget the guy's name, who actually became Dr. Manhattan in the series,
It's
Watchmen
Bruce
series.
Wayne.
This is Bruce Wayne actually becoming Dr. Manhattan, but the Batman Who Laughs infecting him and then becoming the Batman, the Dr. Manhattan Who Laughs. What do you guys think?
Well,
Okay.
yeah,
No,
I'll let you go,
ahead.
Russ.
I don't mind. If you want to go, go.
Well, I was gonna say this is that story, but it's also several others. I think there's like 6 or 8 stories in this
Right.
anthology package. They all seem to come from the dark multiverse, if I'm not mistaken. Right? All of these stories take place there. The
Yes.
highlight for me, Batasaurus Rex.
Not the the Batmobile. Not the baby.
Oh, yeah. There's also
Baby Bat?
there's
Baby.
child Bruce Wayne murdering his parents. There's old Bruce Wayne doing black magic and becoming one with the city. I mean, this is This is a pretty crazy book with a lot of
Yes.
interesting stories and some great artwork. I like that you've got the different styles between the different stories. So I really appreciated that. I do want to say that I think the most intriguing story is probably the Doctor Manhattan one, which is why they stuck it in the front. Um,
Mhm.
but overall, it was a pretty solid book. I don't know how much weight this is going to carry in the rest of the DC universe. Are they ever going to play with these characters again or these concepts? Um, but for what it is in this book, as like
For
a
what
kind
it
of
is.
a what if anthology, I thought it was really cool and I enjoyed it. I'd say this is definitely a read, maybe not a buy.
Okay. So I finally get why they call it metal. Because this is basically Batman heavy metal.
Yeah,
I thought it was metal because of ith metal or something like that, and I never really got it until I read this book and I realized this is heavy metal dark versions of Batman that would exist in a heavy metal magazine. Like if heavy metal made a magazine based on Batman, these stories would come from that. So I get that now. This particular book, for me, well, first of all, the question is, are you reading all the other? Because just like we're reading Empire, I don't know if you guys are reading the
Mhm.
death metal series because this is just part of that series. So the
yeah.
Doctor
There's
Manhattan part is actually a major plot point. So that if you're into that series, yes, that's not going to disappear here. Second thing I noticed is the art was great in the beginning and got progressively worse till the end. Right? If I look through each story, I feel like the art got not to say terrible, but the art is best at the beginning, and then you see it lose some of that as you go from story to story to story. That's what I felt when I read it. Right? You get so I do like some of the stories, like the evil Bruce Wayne kid. Apparently, the Robin who laughs is not actually a Robin. He is actually a Bruce Wayne.
right.
Right. So this is the story of that Bruce Wayne. Right. Or does it call him King Robin or whatever? And if you know your history of Batman, which you may or may not, because you didn't read as many books as me, likely, Batman, Bruce Wayne's first costume appearance was as Robin. That was the first costume he ever put on.
Okay.
So it makes sense why he would make his own sidekick. He would make them be a Robin because for him, Robin was on his way to becoming Batman.
Right.
So it makes sense
Interesting.
that this young Bruce Wayne, who's totally fucking evil and a genius, right? Remember I said, Bruce, if Bruce Wayne is evil, fucking he's Doctor Doom. When you look at it that way, right? And all the evil things he's done, if you look at all, because this is the dark multiverse, right? So this is all the evil versions of Batman, no good version.
Mhm.
This is all
Yeah.
the evil, tragic versions of Batman. So these are all fucked up stories for Bruce Wayne is in. They're all end terribly. They all end bad. There's no happy ending. Good does not triumph over evil in any of these stories. So if you need that in your comic book, this ain't the one. All right?
Yeah.
And some of them, it's nice as an anthology book, but I can't say that I enjoyed it because none of it made me feel good. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right? There's nothing here to make you feel good. There's only something here if you're interested in dark, fucked up versions of Bruce Wayne. Because there's murder, right? There is tragedy, right? The
Yeah.
Batman T Rex, right? Which the B Rex they call it
The
here,
B
or
Rex. Yeah.
Rex, right? He got a mask and everything. Like who's sitting up sewing fucking T Rex mask? You can't get that shit at Walmart, right? I like the Batman loves Gotham more than his family, right?
Yeah.
And willing to sacrifice his only son to save Gotham City without hesitation, because Batman's not one to hesitate, right? Uh, uh, and all these different things that happen to him. He got to lose his body and become a car. He got to lose his body and become, and then at the final one, where he dies, I guess, because he's an infant sitting there shitting on himself because he's that fucking little and he can't do anything because he miscalculated and there's nothing else to it, right? I do like the part where in one universe, Bruce Wayne was going to become Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
And that's the one that the Batman Who Laughs, the most tragic Batman of all, found something there that he could use so that he could become this Dr. Manhattan. But these are all fucking bad endings. There ain't no nothing to smile about here. It's just fucking, so it really depends on how much you love this type of thing. Because the entire dark multiverse is entire messed up stories, right? This is the Ice Cream Man gone way wrong. It takes love and gone. Now, if you're watching, now I put this in the show notes on the last page. You may not have seen it. I took a piece of panel. You can take a look at it from Dark Knights. It's after the last image I put, right?
Yeah.
And this is where the original Batman and Wonder Woman and Harley Quinn riding a giant hyena is trying to go back and save everybody. And in that universe, in that comic book, they're fighting a Bat Darkseid.
Okay.
You know, right? How bad this could get. So there's a right. So and while they're doing that, and then and in that all the what do you call those beasts that Darkseid sends? What do you call those? Parademons.
Parademons, yeah.
But they all say "Holy shit" or "Holy whatever" as they kill you. Right? Because if you're going to be Bat Darkseid, or you're going to make all your parademons Robins, yes. Right? And there's a part, and I'm just going to read it. It says, and Harley says, it could get tacky. Bats on everything. And Batman says, bats are never tacky. Right? He's nice, but you should print that on bumper stickers. And Batman says, I did while you were talking. Now focus. Right? And so I'm just thinking, this is, so as opposed, this is very dark. They talk about the DCEU being too dark.
Yeah, this is even beyond that for sure.
This is hella dark. And I'm not enjoying it the way I enjoy event books normally because it's so fucking dark.
I feel like DC's been doing that in general, though, with the Year of the Villain last year and then now this.
Yeah, but the Year of the Villain, this is still a continuation, I think, of that. Because the Year of the Villain also included this Batman Who Laughs. This shit got to be...
Right.
Yeah.
Purpose of this was so that the Dr. Manhattan Who Laughs can defeat Perpetua. So the Year of the Villain and Perpetua, that is still ongoing, and that's why
stopped.
Exactly. That's why you have Dr. Manhattan Who Laughs, someone who can actually face Perpetua. And all of these worlds are just different manifestations of the fears of Bruce Wayne. Like when he battled Bane, he feared that, oh, this is me if I would have succumbed to just be completely about my body, and I would have just had venom in me to make me stronger because I only have the limitations of the human. Or if I kill Joker, I would be just like Joker. So that's that fear. So every one of these worlds, these dark universes, are fears. And once and if Batman or Bruce Wayne actually gets over that fear, that world subsides. It dissolves. It's no longer a valid world. But because he holds all these fears within him, these worlds exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is very dark, and if you're not into it, by the way, how was my Batman voice? That's
Not as good as Christian Bale.
No one can be as good as Christian Bale. Anyway, so I just say this is a read because it's got that heavy metal vibe. I would say don't buy it. One, because it's sort of an offshoot in some way, sort of providing explainer for what's happening in the larger books at large for some of those characters. Because there is a Bat B Rex in that book, and you wonder where it came from. Now you know, and you know there is an evil Robin, and you wonder where it came from, and now you know. So this is more explainer. So I say it's worth a read. I don't say it's worth a buy. And again, I feel like the art sort of deteriorated as we got closer and closer to the end of the book. And but it is a longer book, right? You get a little more for your money, right? 48 pages than your normal $4 book.
Well, I was gonna say the price has gone up on it too. So it's a bigger book, but it's also more spendy. It's $6.
Oh shit! No, don't buy it. Don't buy it. Find another way.
I want to say that yeah. So when I saw this in the shop, and I'll use this as a way to segue if everybody's has final thoughts on Legends of the Dark Knights Death Metal.
Hmm.
So yeah, I remember seeing this one in the shop and thinking like, it's $6 though. Like it's a bigger book, but the much better value in terms of the DC big books, are the 100-page ones where they reprint old stories and combine it with new stories. So like the two that I got for the Crisis on Infinite Earths, those 200-page books were worth it, I thought, because you get stories that tie into the CW stuff, and then you also get reprints of the original books, which was kind of cool. They've done a couple of, I think 4 or 5 Swamp Thing 100-page issues, where you get a couple of new stories, you get a Zatanna book, you get, and that's all in one single issue, and it's $4 or $5, so it's like normally priced. This one I felt like was a little much, but I get it. This is all brand new stuff, right? So they're not reprinting anything here. That being said, I did want to talk a little bit about DC's new distributor and them moving away from Diamond, because I know that this has caused issues with my shop, at least. They just arbitrarily decided, hey, we're going to do new books on Tuesdays now. And I know my guy wasn't able to get his orders in time because they cut back the deadline to place your orders, because they decided that, we're just going to release these on Tuesday now. And then, DC doing digital first books now, sort of, going in that direction a little more. So I was just kind of curious what your guys' thoughts were.
Well, the way you describe it sounds more like a hiccup in the first month, as far as the deadline changing.
Right.
So, because now he won't meet the first week, but he won't miss the next deadline because now he knows when it is.
Right.
And it also gives you reason. So there's a few things I thought about. I've been doing some reading too. People come in for comic book day. They come in on Wednesday to get the latest books, right? But then you could maybe upsell them on something else if you have a store. But if you can have comic book day on Tuesday and Wednesday, you can actually end up selling more.
Right? Yeah. In theory, I don't think it's a bad idea.
And I'm not saying it actually works that way. But, normally I'm looking at it from the position of the store, right? Once I get you in and your favorite issues are here, and by the way, I got to sell on T-shirts. And by the way, I got to sell on swag, right?
Yeah.
There's some digging the crates stuff here that you might be interested in, right? And it's not just DC, because a lot of indie people can use these same distributors too. And then you have to look at the articles that I've been reading, so I'm not going to act like I'm an authority on this. The articles that I've been reading that shows that when people are receiving their DC books from their new distributors, there are none missing and there are none torn. Whereas Diamond still is having missing books even now, or destroyed books in the process, for which the store gets no retribution.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to say that talking to my guy, he's had bent books from Lunar as well. So I mean, it happens. I think that's sort of just a casualty of shipping something that's
torn and missing.
It's a print.
It's stuff that is happening with Diamond. I don't know if we're getting that from Lunar. Bent books I get.
Yeah.
But missing issues you paid for that you can't get back?
Yeah, so the other concern with Lunar is the fact that they're, I think, partially owned by...
DC?
Well, they're partially owned by DC, yes, which makes sense, right? DC wants to use their own distributor. But I think partially owned by the big shop in New York City.
Yes. I
Um,
don't know the name of it, but I read that as well. Yes.
right, and they have, traditionally they've had like their own variant covers that they get, that are exclusive to their store. Um, but now, like, for the little guy, the concern is if I have, I want to order so much of a certain type of book. Does does Midtown then say, well, we need X number of these
Okay.
special
Well,
limited edition
okay. So
books?
that's a whole different conversation as far as how many they print, etc. And that's one comic shop.
Yeah,
So um, I don't know that that's something we're going to have enough information. If somehow he can't get his order, then that's something to talk about.
right.
But speculating on whether there will be enough for you, I don't know if that's worth the energy right now because you just don't know enough.
Yeah.
And you know who owns Diamond? Just Diamond or a whole bunch of people? I'm not worried about the investors. DC has a vested interest in making sure everybody can get their success using this new format or this new distributor. So I'm under the impression that they are concerned about that and will address it. So I'm not open to creating that being a problem, as it hasn't been reported as such yet.
Yeah.
Right? They're just part owners. Let them be part owners. And they have a vested interest in success. If more comic shops want more fucking books, they should fucking give it to them, right? That's more money for them,
Yeah,
right?
I feel the same way. Yeah.
So I don't, that rabbit hole, without any evidence, I'm not willing to. There's always a possibility. There's sort of like a naysayer. I see the upside. One is if you are a indie comic book company, I believe it's cheaper to some extent for you. I believe it can get to the comic shop earlier before the Marvel gets in. I believe it's likely that your books will be there, all of them that were ordered, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there is more upside than there is downside, right? Because I can clearly point to the things that are already in place to increase the upside, where I feel like downside is more speculation.
Yeah, and
I
I could
the
see like
comic
if
book
you were
companies are stuck. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
if you're an independent guy, making your own book or whatever. I know Previews World, the big previews book that Diamond puts out to
Hmm.
get distributors and shops interested in carrying new books. That can be extremely expensive. So I don't know if Lunar has anything that's similar to that, but maybe a little bit cheaper. You know, that could
Or
be a good
my
way.
thought is just make that digital and make everybody have a login.
Well, no, but I mean, you still have to pay to get your book advertised, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
but I mean, again, this is sort of I don't. First, number one is I don't know the answer because we're not in the game. We're sort of
On the-
tangent
yeah.
at best in the game. So that would be a good question that I would invite you to ask your comic guy.
Yeah.
But if I am a comic shop owner, and I'm not, so I don't know the ins and outs, so know that going in to what I'm going to say, uh, the landscape has changed, and you have to make adjustments so that you can come out on top, right? Because as a comic shop owner, you don't produce new content, right?
Yeah.
You distribute the content. So you have to do things and find ways to make it. And I think there's some opportunities here if they are spun properly. Now, I don't know if you don't have the manpower because I don't know what the margins are. I don't know about a lot of those things. But if you got people you're paying overtime to get all these books up and stocked because everything comes on Wednesday, and now you pay them only 4 hours because it comes on Tuesday and Wednesday, maybe there's some money to be made there, right? Maybe there's some less bigger transition. Because if all the books, if you got hundreds of 100 different issues, varying quantities coming in,
Yeah.
you guys working late to do that, right? You guys are really trying to, everybody's all hands on deck on Wednesdays, right?
Yeah. Or Tuesday night. Yeah.
Yeah, or Tuesday night, right? So maybe now it's half hands on deck on Monday night and the other half on Tuesday nights. And
Right.
maybe it's such a shit show. I don't know if this is true, by the way. I'm just making it up as a possibility. But I do believe that competition of its nature, the very competition, is a good thing. And Diamond had no competition, and comic book shops have been suffering because of that. Is there going to be challenge in the transition? Yes. But I still believe that competition overall is a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just like I'm not a fan of Epic Games, right? But I take all their free stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I think competition is a good thing. Did you get the Total War? They gave away Total War for free, the new one.
No, I'll add it to my account though.
I don't know if you'll be able to get it now. It was only for one day. But anyway, so it's not for me a matter of whether I like the new distributor. It's the fact that I like that there is a new distributor.
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming from. And I like that, I can still just go in on Wednesday, by the way, right? But my
Yeah, and
favorite
still, yeah,
I'd be out of.
depending on how many people came in on Tuesday to buy their DC books, you might
Yes.
be able to still pick them up.
But, if I'm at the level where I'm doing pull lists, then I'm good. But if I'm at the level where I just show up and see what I want, I may miss out on some books.
Yeah.
And that could, who knows how that works, right? So I think that comic shops have to adjust to the new landscape because they're not content creators, right? Like if we do a YouTube channel, we may be creating on content, but if we talk about political news, we really depend on whether or not political people do something stupid. If they have a week where they don't do anything stupid, we're fucked, right? We got nothing to pundit about, right?
Yeah.
So comic shop are in that part in the chain where they're going to have to make adjustments. And I think this competition, long term, maybe not short term, long term is a good thing. But again, my opinion.
All right. We got another item on the roundtable list here. There's a possibility that Disney is going to work with the original X-Men animated series creative team to do maybe another X-Men animated series. I'm kind of excited.
To everyone's shock and surprise, as am I. I am excited because I would then watch and maybe become an X-Men fan. I'm actually in love with the old series, the Saturday morning X-Men cartoons. So if they reinvent the wheel, if they come out with a reboot or a continuation, I'm excited about that.
Okay. So they have already tried to reinvent the wheel. Remember when they did an animated series where everybody was younger?
Talking
what
about
they
X-Men
call-
Evolution,
Yes.
which the
Right.
last season was
Everybody-
actually really good. The first,
Okay.
I think, 2 were not the best, but
Right. Okay. And then they tried again with a new series called Wolverine and the X-Men. Did you watch that?
not as good. But
Watched it.
yeah, I remember it.
All right. So I like the idea of there being more X-Men animated series, but trying to put lightning in the bottle again or trying to reduplicate, and all of a sudden it's going to be great, and it's from and on a tangent, but a parallel to this. Did you know that they were making a live action Airbender Avatar for Netflix, right? And the creators have walked away from it.
Oh,
They're still
wow.
gonna, but the creators have said, creative differences, we're not going to be part of it anymore. So there will still be a live action Avatar series, but the creators will not be part of it.
Interesting. I know the movie wasn't the best.
Yeah, but that's M. Night Shyamalan's fault. So let's just be real on that. You don't put him for blockbuster movies. So I am happy for there should be a Justice League series. There should be an X-Men series because I still firmly believe that X-Men are not really part of the Marvel universe. They just faking it, right? All right, they're just phoning it in, right? They were like, "Oh, we're saving the world." Yeah, we're saving the world too. But how can we never run into each other? How come it's interplanetary? The X-Men are fighting. Where are the Avengers? I don't know. Where are the X-Men? I don't know. But somehow it's on the same planet. I still firmly believe that X-Men is in a different universe than Marvel. They just show up. Sometimes their universes touch, and then they go off on each other again, right? It's sort of like what they say how DuckTales and Darkwing Duck are the same universe but not,
Yeah.
right? I think that's how I feel about X-Men. Am I excited? Am I looking forward to a new X-Men series? Yes. Will I watch it? Of course I will, and I hope to enjoy it, right? But let's just look at Marvel's run on animated series in the last decade, and because the X-Men is older than a decade, right?
Right.
What's the last Marvel animated series you loved in the last decade?
The Guardians of the Galaxy one that they did.
It's not that bad.
It's,
You're right.
It's pretty good. It's
you're right.
yeah.
But then not the critically acclaimed,
No.
right? Not loved, not the way X-Men is. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm not putting any money on it.
Okay.
That's going to be good. But yes, they should have been doing this. That's just money to be made. Come on, man.
Right.
Right? That's more costumes, more action figures. Why would they, right? And then now let's talk about the fact that Marvel and is it Marvel or is it DC having the big layoff? Who had the big layoff recently?
That
think
I
it's
don't
DC.
know. I didn't read about
Yeah,
that.
Warner Brothers had a big layoff. DC Comics had a big layoff. I don't know if Marvel did also. No, in fact, it's Marvel. Let's see. I'm just going to type in Marvel layoffs. 2020. All right. And we'll see. Yep. DC Universe gutted by layoffs. Marvel TV to cut staff, end new development deals. Disney furloughs hit labels. So both comic book companies. Now, in theory, Marvel shouldn't run out of money because they should just be able to use that money they get from fucking doing one movie, right? One movie should fund Marvel Comics for 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But maybe they're keeping the money separate because we know the movies make money. So if we have these big layoffs, a whole bunch of books are getting canceled, right? They already talked about some of those books that are going away. Some stuff is going purely digital. And by the way, you brought up a thing about digital. Only bad selling books are going digital only, right? Let's just be real, right? The major X-Men books are never going to go digital only. The major Avengers book are never going digital only. The major Batman books are never going digital only.
Right.
Only. So I don't really now. I don't know as a comic shop owner if I make a lot of money on the candy books. Maybe I do, right? Maybe people buy. Maybe kids come in and they just want a Batman book. Right, and here's one. I got plenty of them, right? Because they're great books, right? So maybe comic shops are affected. I don't know enough about that. But I know that the digital-only books tend to be not as good. Not tend to be. I would say they all are not as good. That's my take on that.
Okay.
But anyway, anything else? What else you got?
I think that was. I think that's about it. We're coming up on the 90-minute mark. So it's been a good episode, guys.
Sir.
I think so. Can't wait for the next one. I
All
got
right.
stuff for you.
And on that note, if anybody has anything they'd like to add before we head out,
You know, as it stands currently, still not an X-Men fan. August 16th, 2020.
Remember, you can send us an email at, where is that, Matt?
oh yeah, cornercomicsofficial@gmail.com. Go ahead and send us your thoughts.
And we will read it.
We will read it. Yes.
We will read it on the air. It's a lot of expletives. Only I can read it because I'm the one only allowed to cuss at that level. But if it's nicer, then these other guys might read it.
Yeah, and if you're
I want to hear about it.
And if you're watching us on BitChute or listening to us through your podcatcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, you can catch us live on twitch.tv/cornercomics every Sunday at 9 or every other Sunday, depending on whether or not one of us doesn't want to do the show or isn't feeling well. So yeah, it's still a mostly weekly comic book reading club.
Yeah. And by the way, if you listened to our last episode and you heard me rant on how evil Professor Xavier is, I went and put it all into a nice, succinct, clear article entitled Professor X of the X-Men is Evil and a Mind Rapist, and you can find that along with my evidence on cornercomics.net. And I invite your feedback.
Indeed. And on that note, we're out.
Like, what if Batman What if there was an evil bat? You know what I'm saying? Evil Batman Thor. That's what I want. Right? Give me that.